But anyway, firstly, I want to say thank you for taking the time. Honestly, I really appreciate it. And I was up in the stands in Sheffield watching on. Um,
Oh,
I've seen some of your performances in the past. It was the first time that I was there. I was actually there with some of my coaching clients. So our business is Pursue Performance, and there was a group of 7 or 8 of us, and there was people literally flown in from different parts of. Some of my clients came over from America. I had some Matilde coming over from Switzerland, obviously us from the UK. And so we were all up there supporting you and cheering you on. And it was
that's so
incredible.
cool.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome to get to watch you lift. And yeah, surreal, right? I can only imagine what it must feel like to be up there and lifting for that amount of people, you know? How does that feel?
Uh, so I don't know. This year, I kind of didn't really notice the amount of people and how loud it was. I realized after competing that I don't even remember hearing the crowd when I was going out for my attempts, which is so weird because last year I remember clearly the crowd, but this year I don't know. I must have like just switched it off,
Yeah.
and I didn't even realize there were so many people.
So literally you just went out there and it was just nothing. You couldn't hear anything at all as you went out there.
Yeah, that's how I remember it.
That's so cool. Honestly, I mean, because he was really loud in there at one point, especially. I think it was well, actually, the first attempts. I think when people were first coming out, like it was really loud in that room, and everybody was really cheering and the music in the background. But for you, it's just like
Mm.
head down, get on with it, and execute.
I remember hearing the crowd when I was working out for my first squat attempt because it just makes you automatically smile. So I
Mm.
remember that, and I remember that the music was loud because I could feel the bass when just like waiting for my attempt. But outside of that, I don't know. Maybe I just don't remember.
For sure, for sure. And out of curiosity, I was thinking about before I came on what a typical day must look like for you, because obviously, being a professional athlete as a power lifter, I was trying to put together because I know myself, I've got aspiring goals like to make it to the top one day, but and I've got a certain way that I structure my day. But I was kind of curious about like what does a day for Agata look like typically?
So if I don't have anything to do outside of training, then I usually get up at 8:30 or to 9 a.m. I drink my coffee, eat breakfast, prep some food, pack my bag, and go to the gym to start lifting at around 11 to 12. It usually takes anywhere from 3 to 5 hours, and
Right.
then
Wow.
I eat 2 meals at the gym during my session. When I come back home, I will usually go for a walk to get 10K steps every day. Then I just cook my dinner, eat. If there's anything to do around the house, then I do some chores. If no, then I just like waste some time reading a book or scrolling on my phone, and then I go to sleep usually at around 10 p.m.
Nice. What books are you into out of interest? I'm a bookworm myself. I love tons of
Oh
books.
yeah, I can see.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
whatever sounds interesting at the moment. Uh, I really like reading fantasy
Hmm.
and some history books, especially about Second World War and like concentration camps,
Yeah.
USSR, and all that stuff. And yeah, just whatever I see and I think could be interesting. I used to be a lot into true crime or like just crime stories,
Hmm.
but that was like in the past. Right now, not really that much.
Yeah, I've recently tried to get into a bit more fantasy reading myself because yeah, as you can see in the back there, like my reading, Agatha,
Yeah.
when I started, like it was because I've so basically a bit of my background, I've been coaching for since I was 17, right? So and I got into lifting when I was really young, and the first books that I ever really got into were on like periodization and programming, like by
Hmm.
Tudor Bumper, So I became obsessed with training, different philosophies around strength training. And I realized about 2 years ago, I was like, Sam, you've never actually really read much fiction, So I've started trying to get into fiction a bit more, like Lord of the Rings. Like that's my
Yeah.
introductory. So I'm getting into that a bit more now. But
I don't think I've ever read Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the
I've read
Rings.
Hobbit for sure,
Hmm.
and I've watched the movies, but I don't think I've ever read Lord of the Rings itself.
Yeah,
Maybe I
in
should
all,
do that.
I didn't know what to expect of it, to be honest, because people obviously it's a classic book, right? And so I
Have
started
you seen the
reading it.
movies?
I haven't, no, I haven't. So I don't know what happens. So please, Agda,
Whoa.
yeah, I know I'm like 20 years behind the films, but I'm
I
trying to
mean,
stay away
I'm
from
not
them.
judging because I'm not judging because I'm not a really big movie person myself, and
Mm.
anytime someone asks, "Have you seen this or that?" I'm like, "No, no, I don't really watch movies, but this is just
For
next
sure.
level."
For sure, yeah. Lord of the Rings, like that's just something I've never gone to. But the books, I started getting into them, and yeah, really enjoying them. I watched The Hobbit because I read The Hobbit first, then I watched the film.
Oh yeah.
The film, to me, I don't know, I just couldn't get into the film. Really, the book was way better. But anyway, on to some lifting questions. Because what I'm curious about is, I suppose, what does it feel like to be pound for pound, the strongest person on the planet? What's that feel like? Like just walking around knowing that?
Depends on the day, to be honest. There are days when I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm really strong. That's so cool," and there are days when I'm like, "I'm not that strong. I need to be stronger," and it's like it's good, but like there's so much more to do. So I'm never satisfied with how strong I am, obviously.
Mm, mm.
And so just feel like it was even better not being the strongest because you have something to chase. You have like someone to beat, something to prove. And right now it's just kind of I have to find some new challenges for myself to maybe not even keep me motivated, but just to have something to push towards.
So you
And
actually
also
found it
listening,
you found it easier when you were chasing rather than being at the top. That's pretty interesting.
I wouldn't say easier, but maybe a little bit more fulfilling, I would say, because you have someone to beat and you finally beat them and it feels so good. But when you go to a meet knowing that you're gonna win, like the chances are very high that you're gonna win and you actually win, it doesn't feel as good
Mm.
because like you knew what the outcome would be. So yeah, that's just. And also I love listening to different podcasts. Like yeah, I just interested in powerlifting, so I listen to different podcasts. And back in the day when I wasn't the strongest and people would say some things, they would get me like mad and fired up for my session. And now it's just listening to, yeah, I got this, I got that, and it's like boring.
So you just literally, for you, from what I just listened to there, you didn't really get caught up in your own hype then. You just kind of, duck off the water's back, crack on. I'm not listening to the noise. I'm literally just thinking of what's next. That's kind of your mindset and mentality toward it.
Yeah, probably. And I'm not, because it might a little bit sound like I'm complaining that I'm the best. I'm not. I love this. I love this feeling,
Hmm.
but it's just a little bit less fulfilling this way than, you know, having someone to fight with.
Right, for sure. And what did, because I want to go like right to the beginning. I want to, because yeah, I want to understand more about, I suppose, how I suppose your upbringing, right? And like what that looked like, and the story of you more than anything. So what was your memories then, say, before the age of 10? Like what was your upbringing like? Were you always, kind of destined to be a powerlifter?
Hmm. So one thing is that I'm the youngest of six kids, so I have
Mm.
five older siblings, and I just kind of always felt like the young, annoying kid that no one wants to hang out with. So I don't know, that's like part of it that I always wanted to prove to everyone that I'm like, I'm worth something.
Mm.
Another thing is that I remember that as a child, I really liked to showcase my strength by like doing push-ups or lifting heavy objects or people. Like I remember literally going up to a grown-ass man and lifting him off the ground just to show that I'm strong.
How old are you?
So probably, yeah, around like 8, 9 years old.
Yeah, yeah. How big
So
was the man out of interest?
there were many different. So I don't know.
Yeah,
One was
yeah,
my brother, so probably around 80 kilos maybe.
yeah. That's impressive. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that's like one thing I remember. And also fight like arm wrestling my friends at school, and I would beat most guys from my class. So
Yeah,
I've
and
always kind of liked showing my strength.
so did that come from? I suppose, because as you said, you one of six, right? Was that you briefly touched on there? You felt kind of that you had to prove something, maybe, right? Like you had to, because it's never were you the youngest or in
Yeah,
between, or you were the
youngest.
youngest, right? So that's it, right? Like the youngest have always got a point to prove, haven't they? No, it's never the oldest that you've got to look at. It's always the youngest with a point to prove.
Yeah,
Did you feel like that almost?
a little bit. Also because, when you have so many siblings, they all kind of do something different and are
Mm,
good at something. So you just kind of like be at least as good as them or
right.
better. And I've always had really good grades at school because of that as well, because I had older sisters who had really good grades at school, so I couldn't be worse than them. Even though my parents never really pushed me to have good grades, they completely didn't care. I
Mm.
still had to prove something, so
That's pretty interesting. And so, with your siblings, then, were they ever interested in lifting heavy weights or anything like that, or was it just you that had an interest towards it?
I actually started training because like of my sisters because they would train at home, do some like home workouts. It started with MLB and like abs workout and
Yeah,
all of that stuff. And then one of my sisters got dumbbells for her birthday and a bag of protein powder from her friends, and she started doing that at home. And I joined in, and then I just like started progressing, and the dumbbells became too light for me, so I got into a lot of fitness related YouTube content. And so people lift at the gym and thought that that looks really fun. I want to try that out. And I also came across a powerlifters YouTube channel
mm,
and thought that that was fun. And that's kind of how I started going to the gym. And right now, one of my sisters is also powerlifting. She started in August, I believe,
right.
and we're
She's
hoping
one to
to
watch out
make her.
for.
Yeah, but she's really skinny. She's like 52 kilos, so not my territory.
Right. How old is she, out of interest?
She will be 25 this year, I believe. She's
Right.
2 years older than me.
What were some of the numbers? Just out of curiosity. Well, she just started, obviously, isn't she?
I mean, she's been like going to the gym for a few years as well, but it was more of like health and physique focused training.
Mm,
So she just started strength training. Uh, she recently hit like 70 kilos on bench for six touch and go, I
yeah,
think.
that's
So
that's
that's pretty
that's
good.
good. Yeah, that's very
Um,
good.
yeah, I don't know what her one rep maxes are at the moment, but
Yeah,
probably
she's still
something around 120 in squat, 80 on bench, and like 140, 145 on deadlift.
yeah, yeah. And obviously you've had a big part to play in that, I can imagine, because seeing you up there on stage and seeing you hit some of those numbers that you hit in, like how's that affected all of your siblings and your family and stuff like that? What do they have to say about it?
They're always watching, that's for sure. they either make a watch party or like just everyone watches at their home. I don't know. I think they're proud of me. So
For
yeah.
sure. With your parents, out of interest, what was your dynamic with your parents like? Because I'll be honest, I got into lifting weights because of my dad. That he had like talk about a role model for me. My dad is that, right? Like he got me into it when I was about 12 or 13. It's funny you brought up the press ups and the push ups because I would watch my dad when I was a kid. He'd be in the living room, in the dining room, and he'd be just there knocking out push ups. I used to look at him and think, oh yeah, I want to do that one day. I want to. And so he took me to the gym, and I remember the first time there was like in the gym there was a black zone, right, where all the free weights were, and you weren't allowed in there past a certain you had to be a certain age to lift in there. And I remember my first day going in there with him, and I was like really eager to almost impress him in a way, like that was my thing. That was how we bonded. Um, what was the dynamic with your parents like? Did you ever have, say, one of your parents show you this, or maybe you were trying to, was there one maybe that you were almost in a way trying to impress, like I kind of was with my dad? Because I find that with a lot of people that become obsessive about one particular thing, usually they're trying to impress one of their parents in some way. Did you ever have that, or were you just kind of driven
Not
solely by
really.
yourself?
I just I went to the gym all by myself at the beginning, and like I just enjoyed adding weight to the bar,
Mm,
just enjoyed lifting, and that was kind of my thing. So yeah, I wasn't trying to necessarily impress anyone. I
mm.
was just I just like lifting.
Yeah, for sure. And I think for me that kind of it, of course, like I'm sort of way still not doing that this today for him, but I think it started out as that for me, and then it just turned into a
Yeah.
huge passion. Um, and so for you, then it was a case of this is just something that I enjoy doing, and I'm just gonna attack it wholeheartedly. That's pretty interesting. Do you play any other sports or anything like that out of interest, or has it always just been lifting?
So I've been a very active kid all my life. Lots of walking, lots of like hanging around outside, like climbing trees and stuff.
Mm,
And I've always had this idea that I want to do sports professionally, but I just never really found the sport that would be good for me
mm.
because I'm pretty short. So every time I wanted to do some sport, everyone would tell me that I'm too short for it. And
Same.
I did, yeah, like I did some horse riding for a while, but it was, yeah, just for fun, nothing too serious. And so, yeah, I haven't really done any other sports at this, at like any level, I would say.
Right. And when did you think that you had a talent for powerlifting? How old were you?
Uh, Probably from the very beginning.
Mm,
I mean, I didn't really realize that I had this much talent up until 2022, but when I came to my powerlifting club for the first time, because like we have that in Poland, and the coach saw me bench, he was like, "Okay, you're going to national bench press championships next month because you're this good." And yeah, that was kind of like he was impressed with my strength from the very beginning, and that taught me something. And also the fact that I could bench 100 kilos after a year of powerlifting, that's like kind of the standard for guys, I would say.
mm,
So
mm,
I thought that yeah, that's pretty good. So
for sure.
yeah,
And we'll go you into equipped out of interest. Like what led you down that? Because that's a very, especially today's day and age, like we all pretty much is raw, isn't it? Like that's where everybody does.
yeah.
What got you into equipped? Was there a particular person that spoke to you about doing that, or was it just your decision that you decided to do that?
So when I started lifting, we still had those national training camps for the national team. And one of those, I was like persuaded by our head coach and like some other lifters that did equip. Because also we had the World Games in 2022. So I started competing then equipped in 2021 to qualify for the World Games and compete there. So that's just kind of how I got into it, but I don't really miss it, to be honest.
No, why is that?
It's just, I don't know if you've ever done equipped, but
No.
it's
No.
training is so much more mentally and physically tasking. It's like doing few sets of equipped bench is more tiring for me than doing a whole SBD session with
Mm.
accessories.
Well,
So
yeah, you're holding super maximal weights, right? Like
yeah,
some of the loads that you're putting up are just
and the
incredible.
pressure is really high, so like you can have some bloody eyes afterwards and all of that.
Yeah, have you had the nosebleed at all? Yeah, have you had yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I don't think it was equipped by itself because when I was younger, I would often have nosebleeds, so that was just a thing for me.
Right, I see. Did you take anything from it out of interest? Like, for instance, like, so I've got a rugby background, right? Like in Wales, we all, I don't know if you're familiar with Wales at all, South Wales anyway. It's a little bit off England. So you've got England. This is how I
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
describe it to everybody. And that's
Yeah.
the reaction I get always. It's like, yeah, I remember it now. It's like a
I
tiny
mean,
little country.
I just wasn't sure about your pronunciation.
Yeah,
More of that.
that's it. Yeah, Wales is it's a tiny little country off England, and we're obsessed with rugby. We love rugby, right? So when I was really young and getting into sports, that was my first sport, and yeah, I took a lot from rugby. You know, I took a lot from rugby. Like what one of the things that I took was I found that um there's so many things you can't control, right? So you can't control if someone's gonna, blindside you and smash you in the ribs in a tackle. You know, you can't control if someone's gonna give you the ball. You have to, there's certain things that you have to do to learn how to go along with those things that are just completely outside of your control. When I came over to powerlifting, I remember Agata, one of my first memories of going into a powerlifting gym. I walked in front of someone squatting, and I wasn't too far away, I was probably maybe a few meters away from them. And I obviously didn't know that was a thing, and they just completely kicked off, right? I say completely kick off. They didn't really. They made a comment or something like that. And I thought, wow, that's the level for somebody to get her off. Like for me, give me any bar, give me any plates. All I need to do is perform. I don't care where I am, what conditions are happening, who's around me. Because I had that background in rugby, I was used to so many other things being outside of my control. So for you, then, did you take anything from equip lifting or um, any lessons?
I don't know. I can't think of anything.
Yeah, nothing that comes to mind. Fair enough. But what was the transition then from equipped lifting to raw lifting like?
I didn't really have any transition because never, I never did like only equipped. I would always do raw training and equipped on top of
Oh,
that
right.
because I was
Okay.
always prepping for an equipped and raw meet at the same time.
Oh,
Like
right. Okay.
in 2021, I competed at equipped Europeans and juniors, and then a month later at Classic Junior Worlds, and then 2 months later at equipped Open Worlds again. So just like kind of always prepping for both.
Wow. I bet that must have been some experience, like being a talk about hard, being able to compete at raw and then equipped at the same time. I can imagine that was pretty
Wasn't
tough.
hard for me.
No, no, nothing, nothing you can handle.
Nothing will like I will never forget when back in 2022 I started doing 6 SBDs per week, and then I started prepping for the World Games, and I would just do 5 raw SBD sessions and 1 equipped SBD session per week to
Right.
keep that 6 times per week frequency. But I was mostly self-coached back then. So if I missed a session, in my head, I just had to do it on another day.
Mm,
Sometimes I would do 2 SBDs, just like squeeze them into one.
Mm.
And this one time, I did an equipped SVD session, and right after, I did a raw SVD session, and I spent like 7 hours at the gym, and it was completely normal to me.
That's
And like,
7 hours. That's a long old time, isn't it?
yeah, like I wasn't the smartest lifter.
So, who was the first person then that kind of showed you, right, this is how you train correctly? Was it that coach that came up to you the first time that saw you bench press at 100 kilograms? Did they have the biggest influence on you?
So he was like our powerlifting club's coach. He
Mm,
still is, and he didn't. He doesn't really do programming. It's more of like you just come to the gym and he tells you do 3 by 5 on bench, and that's that. And the biggest influence was obviously my current coach, Pavel. I came to him in 2022. I've met him through my boyfriend, and I basically came to him because I knew I had to start prepping for the World Games, but I didn't know how to program for Equipped at all. So I just kind of, yeah, came to him for him to program my Equipped training, and he also would give me accessories, help me with those Equipped sessions, and revise my program and tell me what he thinks about it. And eventually, after Sheffield 2023, he started fully programming for me.
right, right, I see. And that was one of the things that I was noticed straight away, looking at your coming into Sheffield and stuff like that. You seem like you got a really good team around you, some really solid people there. And that helps, doesn't it? Because um, the relationships that you have, I think that's one of the most important aspects in life in general, is having solid characters around you. So do you like that must be a complete game changer having that network around you. I can imagine, um one thing I've got to bring up, because this is something that I well, you stood out to me, if I'm honest, Agata. The weights, obviously, right, that you were lifting, um, but you just go on with it, right? So I noticed that a lot of the lifters they were very performative, if I'm being honest, right, and playing up to the crowd. But you, head down, go on stage, got the job done straight off, and I loved that because there was no messing around. It was just execution, and I could relate a lot to that because I'm very similar in that way, right? Like I just want to. I'm in my own headspace, and I want to get it done. So I want to delve into the psychology of lifting. Like that's what I'm really interested to find out from you about. Like, how do you prepare mentally? Say if you go into Sheffield, right, and you obviously, like you just did, do you work on that side of things at all? No, you don't.
Not really. I just kind of, I'm not ever an expressive lifter. As you've said, I don't like do any screaming or anything like that. But I do get pretty fired up in my head with
Yes.
like music, smelling salts, all of that. So I'm just going on the platform, just looking at the bar, and basically, I don't know, I just blur my vision, go under the bar, and the only thought is to lift the weight.
Mm.
So that's kind of how I approach it. And yeah, I wasn't really celebrating after my lifts that much because I was just not happy with the weights that I was moving.
Oh, really? Really? Why
Yeah,
was that? Out of interest, you weren't actually. So you were expecting to hit more on the day, or?
I was happy with my squat. That was probably the strongest squat day I've ever had, matching my all-time squat PR at 8 kilos lighter body weight.
Mm.
And it moved really fast. So I was really happy with my squat, but on bench, not really, because I've benched more before. And just, I expected more going into this meet, but it just didn't show up on the day. And on deadlifts, I failed my third attempt, so there was nothing to celebrate. So
Right, right, for sure. I gotta be honest though, I appreciated that. It stood out to me straight away how there was just no nonsense. He was like, get on, get it done. And I really liked that. I thought it was pretty authentic. But yeah, in terms of like on the day then,
yeah,
like,
that's cool to hear because
Oh, sorry, I cut you off then,
I just want
Agata.
to say that that it's nice to hear because I thought that, people like when those lifters do all those things and it just, connecting with the crowd and stuff. And I can't even think about it in the moment
Yeah.
because, you're just focused on lifting. So you don't think about what you're doing. So it's
Mm.
nice to hear that some people actually appreciate that.
No, I gotta be. I thought you were, and I'm not just saying it because I'm chatting to you. I thought you were the most authentic one on the day because that was the most real to me. Because when I'm in the gym, I'm not like sticking my hands up to the air and looking at the sky before I hit the PR. Like I'm keeping my head down. I'm thinking about what I need to do, and that's it. That was the most genuine. How can I put it? That was the most genuine execution of the lifts that I could see, So yeah, absolutely. I thought that was awesome. So on competition then, like on the day, what does it look like for you? Like what are you doing to the build up before you get on stage and before you start lifting? Like what does that morning look like for you?
Yeah, obviously depends on when the weigh-ins are because sometimes we leave at like, I don't know, 7 p.m. at Worlds,
Mm,
for instance. So that's a lot of time to kill. And I'm usually just very nervously, maybe not nervously, but I'm really excited to live and there's a
mm,
lot of energy and you just really don't know what to do with yourself because you can't focus on anything because the only thing you can think about is lifting, but you have so much time and the time is going by so slowly. But I usually try to leave like all the food prepping, drink prepping, packing my gym bag for the day of the competition to have anything to kill the time. And outside of that, I like to at least try reading a book if I can focus, just like get my thoughts off of lifting. And outside of that, you just eat something, drink something. If I have some weight that I can fill out, that's it.
right, okay.
Just
And then when you go into competition, Uh, do you kind of have a trigger or something that kind of sparks you into that so for me, for instance, like when I go into the gym and I put on my squat shoes, right? And I I I have to get my mind in a very specific spot, right? So I think sometimes people at my gym might think I'm going a little bit crazy because I'm just sat there in the corner of the room with my eyes closed, trying to visualize, everything that I need to feel. I play back in my head exactly step by step what I should be feeling under the bar. And my goal always is to try and control the process. So I'm always trying to control step by step exactly what I should be feeling. And the technique and the execution of the technique is the main goal for me. It's not necessarily, of course, the weight is the execution of the weight we want, right? But it's almost a byproduct of the process. So I always try and focus in on the technical execution of things. But my trigger is always when I come through the door, and that's when I go through my mental processes. So, in terms of that, is it just more of like a laid back approach? And as you said, you just kind of don't think about it and it's just execution? Or do you have like a trigger when you come in through, into competition, into that arena? Is that your time where you start, and really get into that psychology?
I feel like it would be putting my knee sleeves on because
Right.
up to that point you go out, come out of the veins. You have to eat something, drink something, and then there's even more waiting because before you can start warming up. But once you put your knee sleeves on, it means you can start going under the bar. And I would say that's the moment for me.
Have you played around with like any visualization stuff at all or anything like that before?
Not really.
No, right. Okay, so for you, it's very much just a case of this is what I need to do, and I'm just going to execute wherever's in front of me. That's pretty cool. Right. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. And beforehand, you try and relax and settle because you mentioned nerves, right? Do you get nervous at all?
I wouldn't say nerves. Yeah, I've worded that wrong. I don't really get nervous before comps. It's more of like this, anticipation and
Right.
excitement and lots of energy. I tend to do a lot of sprints in the morning before comp. If I have to get anywhere, I will just full send it. So that kind of shows me that yeah, today is a good day. I have a lot of energy and it's gonna be a good lifting day.
Right, for sure. So for you, obviously, with the you, it's interesting how you framed that there because I'm not sure if you're familiar. I'll try and find the study, but there was a study done on top athletes about nerves and kind of how, certain athletes respond differently, right, on competition day and stuff like that. So I used to get really nervous. Agata, when I was
Yeah.
playing rugby, I'd get very, very nervous, and so I've done a lot of reading into this, and one of the biggest things that I came to realize was that it's actually your perception around the nerves that changes, and that's what they found in this study, right? It was how the athletes perceived the nerves. They found that everybody experiences nerves or anticipation or whatever you want to call it, but it's actually the price tag that you put on those nerves, right? If that
That's so
makes sense.
interesting.
Yeah, so for me, I started looking at it differently. So when I felt those nerves, I'd start to try and reframe it as, do you know what? I choose to feel like this. This feeling makes me feel alive. Like this is what it means to feel human, right? So, for you, I can imagine that that's very much the path that you take and the psychology that you take with your lifting. I don't know. Am I anywhere right on that or?
But that's actually a very interesting approach. I that might be true because yeah, we obviously all feel something before a big comp, but I've always found that I'm not getting nervous before big things like that. Like when people would be stressed before an exam or anything,
Hmm.
I just didn't care, and maybe that's why I always thought that I'm not nervous before comps, even though I can feel something. Like obviously, that's why I'm saying it's excitement and anticipation. But yeah, maybe someone else could call that nerves.
Yeah, you see the opportunity, whereas other people see a threat, maybe. That's
Maybe.
that's a champion's mindset. It makes sense. Well, look, Agata, I just realized we've been on you nearly an hour now, so I really appreciate your time, and I don't want to take too much of it up. I'm curious, last question, to find out like what the future holds for you, in terms of because I think you were talking about moving up, right? And you were looking at that. So yeah, what's the future look like for you? Anyway, what are your plans?
So for this year, I'm staying 69 for Worlds and the World Games. Uh, there's one thing that I want to try going down to the 63s, but I will only be able to do this if there's powerlifting at Euro Muscle Show again, because it was introduced last year. Like Euro Muscle Show is this kind of fitness expo, something like the Arnold's. But the last year was the first time they organized it, and powerlifting was there. So I'm hoping it's gonna be again, but apparently there's some problems with that. So
Hmm.
we'll see. If this meet takes place, it's in July. I would like to try to cut down to the 63s for that meet. If it doesn't take place, then I'm just gonna try to cut down to around 65 kilo body weight for the World Games to try getting some like insane GL points and maybe possibly a 10 times body weight total, but we'll see how that goes. So that's the plan for now. And then after World Games, I'll start moving up. I'm planning to compete as a 76 at the next year's Sheffield, then go up to the 84s for Worlds. But I probably won't fill out the weight class just yet. I will probably be at around 77, 78 kilos, and then cut down again to the 76s for the next Sheffield, because next year we will have two Sheffields, and that's the plan for now.
Well, that's
And
that's
what's next,
incredible.
we'll see.
Yeah, that's it. We'll see. That's incredible. You're literally looking at dominating everywhere, aren't you? That's it. You're looking at dominating all the weight classes. I love it. I love it. Um, and I suppose maybe this is one thing. Last question, I promise. I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on it. Um, you've inspired a lot of people for sure. Even people that as I said at the start, people, my coaching clients, I took there and they were raving about you, afterwards and some of the weights that you were lifting. It really does. It has a ripple effect, and I want to bring that up to you because, in your action and in the things that you've done, you've inspired a lot of people, what would be your and it's a quite a big question, so feel free if you haven't got an answer for it, that's fine. But say if there's somebody coming up, right, who's looking to get into the sport, or is it maybe a little bit nervous about doing so? Like, what would your advice be to them? Now, being a champion today, like, what would be your advice? Someone who's maybe on the fence about doing this, what would you say?
Just go for it. It's a really fun sport. The community in powerlifting is really amazing. People are super nice, super welcoming. Everyone will want to help you. Like one thing I love about powerlifting is that even while we're competing against each other, we like you see people helping
Mm,
each other out. Like if someone forgets to bring baby powder to a meet, they're gonna find someone who will lend them their baby powder. And you can see people from the same weight class just cracking jokes in the warm-up room and just having a good time. So yeah, it's a really, really good sport to get into. It's really fun. The community is amazing. And yeah, just go for it. If you're nervous, I would recommend finding a good coach
mm.
who will get you through all the steps and then just stick to the program, just do the basics, and you're definitely gonna get stronger.
Absolutely. And out of interest, do you do coaching yourself now? Have you started doing
No,
that? Not yet. Are you
no,
thinking about it?
not really, because I know I will have to learn a lot and it just kind of feels overwhelming, I would say. My boyfriend recently started coaching people, and the amount of time he had to spend to just like learn the basics, and he still has so much more to learn. It's just kind of like feels overwhelming. But maybe if I feel bored, I will start just getting into it, and we'll see. But not for now.
Well, if you ever want any book recommendations, I can hit you up.
Oh yeah,
There's plenty of books I got going on in the background. But anyway, Agatha, look, it was brilliant chatting to you, and it's great getting to know you as well. Because my goal with this, I just wanted to get to know you and hear a little bit more about your story. And yeah, people are absolutely are gonna love this for sure. But by the way, best place to find you if people ever, I know obviously you're not doing coaching right now, but if anybody wants to find your Instagram or ever, where would they find you?
probably on Instagram. Yeah,
What's your handle again?
uh, I don't know if we're gonna.
Do you
Yeah,
know what?
maybe you
I'll,
can
I'll
just tag that. Yeah.
I'll tag it. I'll tag it.
Yeah.
I'm the same. Listen, if it wasn't for my Instagram handle's just Welsh Strength Coach. It's kind of catchy. So if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't know mine either. But I'll attach that below for sure in the podcast notes. But Agata, pleasure to chat with you. Pleasure to get to know you.
Thank
I'll
you.
let you know as soon as this has been released, and I'll pull it up, obviously, in all my socials and tag you in it and stuff. And yeah, really appreciate your time today as well. And congratulations on all of the achievements that you've had recently as well.
Thank you. And thanks for having me on again.
Anytime, anytime. Well, I'll catch you soon, Agata. Bye now. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.